Hello and welcome to the episode 5 of the Toilet Rampart Guide. In this episode, we will focus on Rampart's ultimate ability, Sheila. Are you ready to rule the battlefield with raining leads? Let's go! Just like the last episode, we will start from the basic tips. Basic tip number 1 is to use Sheila with your covers. And this is pretty obvious because when you are using Sheila, you will be very high profile and you will be moving slowly, so you will be an easy target. An amped cover gives you some protection so that you can output damage in a safe environment. Basic tip number 2 is that you can melt doors with Sheila. This is a very well-known fact, but a lot of people have a difficult time remembering it. As long as you bear this feature in mind, you will be surprised by the amount of free kills you can get from melting a door and catching someone off guard. You can also use this as a breaching tool to start a fight. Suppression fire is Sheila's specialty, so you should always use it when your teammates need cover. For example, when you see your teammates are healing or resting another teammate, you should use Sheila to provide suppression fire so that enemies cannot push you immediately. You can also provide suppression fire when your teammates are pushing through the open. That way, enemies won't be able to peek easily or do a lot of damage on your teammates. You can also finish knocked enemies with Sheila. This is very useful when you knocked an enemy from a distance. When they are crawling back to cover with their knockdown shield up, simply pull out Sheila and spray through their knockdown shield, and you will be able to secure that kill easily. Another tip is to use slide jumping with Sheila. I've seen this way too many times. Do not do this. Instead, do this. The way of doing this is first, you slide, and then you pull out Sheila and hold down the ADS button to start winding it up. And then, while holding the ADS button, you jump to complete the slide jump. So you will be spinning up Sheila while you are approaching your desired location. And by the time you are at your desired location, you will be able to fire immediately. And last, just a quick reminder, you cannot loot when you have mobile Sheila in your hand. However, you can still open and close doors. For the advanced tips, the first one is that sometimes you should use Sheila without her walls. This happens in two situations. The first situation is that you need to fire as soon as possible. If you want to use it with her walls, you will need to pull out her wall, put down her wall, pull out Sheila, start winding up, and then after the wind up is complete, you can finally start shooting. The whole process can take about 2 to 3 seconds, and 2 to 3 seconds is a long time for Apex. These few seconds can be the difference between winning a fight and losing a fight. So if you see that your teammates are in very dangerous situation, or your enemy is about to get away, then consider not putting down a wall before spinning up Sheila. The second situation is when you are shooting someone very far away from you with Sheila. Take a look at this clip. Can you see the target? Well, I can't. I just can't see with all this flashing trail. This is what I meant in episode 3, where I don't think full auto weapons work well with Rampart's wall. If you are certain that your enemies cannot do some good damage on you, then it is totally fine to use Sheila without her walls. Just use Sheila in placement mode, and you will be able to use that 3x scope and lower recoil for better control and better tracking. Next, you can make use of Sheila's laser. You can use the laser to intimidate your enemies or draw their attention. For example, when they are about to push you and your teammates, you can point the laser at them and tell them, "Hey, I'm looking at you, don't you dare to come out." This works better in higher ranked games because people are playing more carefully. Meanwhile, if your teammates are in a very bad position, or if they are in a very weak state, you can point that laser at your enemies and hopefully you can draw their attention away from your teammates. On the other hand, you can hide Sheila's laser by pointing it onto the ground or onto a wall and use the side of your screen to observe your enemies. By the time your enemies go around a corner, it will be too late for them because Sheila is there waiting for them. They just didn't know it. While Sheila is good for suppression fire, you should be more careful when you are doing long sprays. This is because Sheila is a very high-profile weapon. Once you start firing, your enemies will start looking at you. After 2 or 3 seconds of firing, you might actually start receiving fires from the enemies. And since you are moving slowly, you could be an easy target for them and end up getting yourself killed because you are being too greedy with Sheila. Remember, staying alive is more important than doing damage to your enemies. Apex is a team game, so being able to help your team as a whole is more important than what you can do alone. It is okay to stop spraying. All you need to do is find another chance and start spraying again until you can make an opening for your team. Let's dive deeper into Sheila's cooldown mechanism. When you put Sheila back to cooldown, it will start from a certain percentage based on how many bullets you have left in your mobile Sheila. And the maximum cooldown for that is 2 minutes, which is very short, so I strongly recommend you to put Sheila back to cooldown once you have finished a fight and briefly checked your surrounding. Make sure that you are not getting third-partied immediately. Then you can put away Sheila back to cooldown. I also want you to remember 2 numbers. The first number is 130. When you put Sheila back to cooldown at 130 rounds, the cooldown will start at 75%, which is the shortest possible cooldown of 30 seconds. The second number to remember is 100. If you put Sheila back to cooldown when it has 100 bullets left, you can get Sheila back immediately after an ultimate accelerant. So make sure you bring an ultimate accelerant with you when you are playing as Rampart. Another very useful little trick is to leave some space between your cover and your stationary Sheila. By doing so, when your enemies fight back and break your first cover, you can simply place another wall behind the old cover.
Putting up some amp cover.
If you placed your stationary Sheila too close to your first cover, you won't be able to do this. And you will have to put your new cover, in front of your old cover, which is probably going to be destroyed in no time.
Tossing up some amp cover.
Apart from slide jumping, you can also combine Sheila with other movements so that you are harder to hit while you are using Sheila. For example, you can combine Sheila with bunny hop. You can go further with Sheila in this way. You can also combine Sheila with wall bouncing. or basic wall bounce. You can also combine Sheila with zipline. Just to remember that when you are holding ADS, you cannot interact with a zipline. If you are on mouse and keyboard, I would definitely recommend tap strafing as well. And lastly, of course, you can combine Sheila with super gliding to cover a long distance in a short time. That's what you see every time in the introduction of the Toilet Rampart Guide. I also recommend reserving Sheila for the end zone. Sheila is very powerful in the end zone. However, you will never find it enough. Even 2 full max of mobile Sheila wouldn't feel enough in the end zone. So that's another reason to bring ultimate accelerant with you. In case you used Sheila right before the end zone, just put Sheila back to cooldown and pop an ultimate accelerant, and hopefully you will have Sheila back once the end zone closes. That's all I want to share in this episode. As always, I hope you learned something valuable and new. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment sections and I'll try to answer them. The next episode will be episode 6, Movement. I will be focusing on the combination of super gliding and tap strafing in my gameplay, as well as sharing how to practice them and how I apply them in actual fighting. In my opinion, that is the most valuable episode of the Toilet Rampart Guide, because the combination of super gliding and tap strafing, as well as how frequently I use these techniques in my gameplay, is what makes me different from most other Rampart mains. If you are on controller, then I'm sorry you can't enjoy the benefits of tap strafing. However, you can still learn some applications of super gliding in the next episode. So I'm still hoping to see everyone in the next episode. So that's it. Prepare for the last wave. Bye.